this time. So, anyway, I wanted to talk about the fact that, I'm a bookworm. But I'm not just any bookworm. I'm that bookworm. One of the things me and Jean actually connect over is the fact that we're bookworms. Now, I've never been a party girl. But I have been the girl who had to be told, hey, no books at the dinner table. Because I would legit just prop that shit up. They'd be like, there were several times I was asked, how do you not get food on it? And that actually is a big reason why I learned to eat as neat as I do. And sometimes Jean will bring it up. Man, I can't do that. Because, we'll have something and I'll have perfected the art of, not even getting it on the plate. And he'll be over here I can't even do that. And Chris will be over here well, he's a kid, so not. He'll have it on the plate, on the table, we'll have to clean up. It's not too bad. He's getting neater as he gets older, but, still a kid. So, anyway, I'm that person. The only thing that really changed was with technology. It basically just made it easier for me to carry more books around with me. A lot of what I read is online because I don't want Google in my shit. And there's not a lot of options if you don't want Google or Amazon knowing what you read, marketing to you based on what you read, blah, 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 blah. So I just go to Bookman's. And they can go screw themselves because I don't want them doing this. I don't... There's a price I don't want to pay. I'm aware that they're probably logging all the fan fictions that I've read and that stuff, because I do that through my apps. And there's a level of stuff that probably gets monitored through, online stuff, but I will curb it wherever I can. Because that's bullshit. Anyway, we make time for each other, and in long-term relationships, you have to do that. It's not really optional. It's more like a relationship is something with two people in it. It's a people-ship. You need to talk to one another and communicate and do things together. Sometimes all we do is read books side by side because we're boring bookworms like that. Me, myself, I've never been a party person. I've never even been to a club. And I don't know, I used to go to a bar with friends to play pool. It was up the street from where I lived. And it was something that we did to sort of just deal with stress. We'd just go play pool because they had a pool table. Then they made the rule that you had to buy a beer. And in the middle of the day, they'd let us get away with it, where we'd all just buy one beer and share it. Or, they'd kind of let us get away with it because we spent money at the pool table. We weren't just sitting there drinking water, just taking up space. We were spending money. It just wasn't getting sloshed. So, I don't know. Sometimes I didn't even drink any at all, especially if it wasn't the kind I liked. I'm into flavored beers, and they didn't really have that, so I'd take a couple sips and just let the rest of them have it. So, I like my stuff flavored. I'm not gonna lie. I like my girly drinks. But here's the funny thing, it's not really girly. Jean actually likes girly drinks. Swear to God, I can even name his favorite, and I'm not going to here, because that's none of anybody else's business. But yes, it's okay for guys to like girly drinks. He could name it if he wanted to. Because I think the only one who even watches my videos sometimes is him. That's only whenever he has time. So, honey, if you want to, you can say it, but I'm not going to. Because I feel like this is one of those things that you just learn that people assume otherwise. And you know, he's not shy about it. It's just one of those things that either you know or you don't. You learn it along the way of knowing somebody. You know, and I guess, you know, that's one of those things. Like, most people ask them. You can ask most of my relatives, what is Luna's favorite color? You could even use my legal name and they won't know shit. What is her favorite time of day? My little sister would know. Because, you know, we talk about this stuff from time to time. And, you know, I have to, like, reaffirm and ask because it's, like, been so long. And I'm always afraid that I'm going to forget it. Because over the years growing up with all the medications and stuff, I had a shitty memory. It actually took me a while to even reconcile the idea that my memory is not actually shitty. Like, there was years of transitional going into this because my memory is actually very good. And I have a very good memory about details about people. Not so much about names, but it also has a lot to do with how significant that name is. How much I deal with that person. How much I respect that person. And that's a secret I'm not telling anybody. Because basically, if I don't respect you, I'm going to have a lot more problems remembering your name. It's just sort of a thing. It comes from years of compartmentalization. And I'm not gonna tell people that because then I don't want it to be construed as an excuse or hiding behind it. I don't want to do that. So I just sort of blanket that I'm bad with names.
It really just means that I don't like you, though. Or that I don't respect you, generally speaking, which can be taken the wrong way, because it's not meaning that I'm intentionally disrespecting you. It's meaning that the feelings are there. And that, generally speaking, you haven't deserved it. Which people will take as offense. Because it's not something that means that you've earned distrust. It just means that you haven't done anything. You know, it doesn't mean that you've earned disrespect. It just means that you haven't earned respect. Some people don't understand the difference. And there is. There's sort of like a neutral ground of where you're not really disrespected, but you haven't really earned anything extra either. So if I remember your name, it's not because it's catchy. I've forgotten some pretty catchy names. Just because they're a person that I compartmentalize out, you know, in a way. It's a weird thing, and I can't really explain it, just years of surviving. It's something that you learn to do. You compartmentalize to an extent. I can't compartmentalize certain things. So names happen. So if I forget your name, see, there's another thing. If you are like my most hated nemesis, I'll remember your name. That too. It depends on where you stand. So if I remember your name, basically it's worth remembering. I dealt with a lot of people who just went in and out of my life as a kid, and it hurt. Because most of the people I was around, I was isolated from most people except those who benefited financially from dealing with me. Essentially speaking, funding. So there were so many groups of people just siphoning my life, basically, for funding. I didn't really play with other kids. I didn't know how to deal with other kids. There was no childhood in this. I wasn't allowed. And I spent more time in doctor's offices than I did listening to teachers at school. Yeah. There were multiple times my grandmother was threatened with truancy because of it. But they couldn't actually follow through with it. And the cops were actually called at some point because of it. And, you know, they were like, well, we can't do anything about this. This isn't truancy. If it's for medical stuff, it's not truancy. Sorry, we can't. This isn't a thing. And, you know, it was left alone. It was dropped pretty quickly. But this was a thing. So anyway, my childhood was shit. Beyond the abuse and the fact that I was willing to kill myself before I was sent back to foster care, my childhood was pretty much shit, but I don't use it as an excuse for things. So whenever it comes down to things like the side effect of years and years of compartmentalization, which now I'm willing to admit, but if you'd asked me back then, I would have said no, just because admitting it is walking into a trap. It's its own trap. There are people who use that to do more shit to you. That's what you learn growing up in the system. And believe it or not, are actually a lot of people who will do that. So it's not actually magically changed whenever you grow up. It's not that your view of the world is different, it's that people have shown you different sides of themselves because they feel like they can get away with it. So the truth of the matter is, we live in a shitty-ass society where there are a lot of people who, the moment they feel that they can get away with it, do a lot of shitty things. They shouldn't. And we should all stand up and tell them no and to stop. But the truth of the matter is, more people should than do. It's a sad truth, but it's a truth. And everything that happened there made me more vulnerable to what happened to me and my kids as an adult. I was a young adult, probably. I was 21. And, they did this to us, claiming that I would eventually do something or fail to do something, even though I never had. Literally, I had no drug history, no alcohol history, against all the odds of kids that grew up in this shit. I'd said, no, I'm not going to be a statistic. And in the end, they made us one. They made us a statistic by what they did. And I will never forgive them. And I will never stop fighting. Get off the table. Cat. Just because I ain't looking at you doesn't mean I don't see you. Paws off the table. Good boy. So anyway, cat interruptions aside, I guess after we got the new table, well, it's not new anymore. It's months old. I had to retrain them not to get up on it. And I guess I'm still retraining them. So I guess different table, need retrained because lucky. Also, Gorgeous is guilty. She rarely does it though, and she doesn't do it any more than she tested with the old table. This is just a bit of defiance where she's basically expressing how angry she is at everybody. It's usually petty stuff too. You fed me 5 minutes later than usual, or the bowl went empty 5 minutes sooner, something like that. Something, but Yes, dear? Okay. So anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, growing up in the system sucks. It sucks even if you're in a family placement. Now, my grandparents had plenty of opportunity to remove me completely from the system. They didn't do this. Because there was money in it. Even in a family placement, if they claim certain things, there's money in it. Because they weren't my parents. There wasn't a whole lot of money for the state, but there was money that my grandmother could claim. Literally, she had me declared disabled in the first place. Not because I was actually incapable of the things that she would say, but because of that. And because it was money. It was money that she could claim. She systematically destroyed my life and my future. And eventually that would be used in arguments, in a courtroom, to rip apart my family. Because she didn't stop because I turned 18. The stuff that they had wasn't from then. It was from years earlier. And that had been a time whenever some stuff had happened and I'd managed to rip all that away from there. I'd managed to get that away from my grandmother. I'd had to sign specific paperwork basically stating that they couldn't talk to her. They couldn't take anything that she said. They couldn't tell her anything. And I had to talk to my grandfather, and I said, if you want to be involved in this, you cannot tell my grandmother. You cannot tell grandmother. You cannot talk to her about it or anything. And he's like, there's no secrets between us. And I'm like, okay. So I signed it, but I gave him an option. I knew what he would choose, because it's not like years of him choosing not to stop her didn't permeate with experience, but I gave it to him because I felt like I was honor bound to do so as family. You know, I wanted to give him the option. It was more like a courtesy thing. I knew what he would choose. He always chose grandmother. It didn't matter what she did to me. He'd accept the stupidest explanation for some things, too. My grandfather was one of the brightest people that I knew. But consequently, he was also the stupidest. And you will never hear me say that to his face. It was sort of a thing my mom summed up once. I feel like she learned this from him. They say love blinds. Love is blind. She said that a lot. Love is blind. And then I'd ask her, what's love when it's not blind? And she said, well, that's true love. But love is blind. And I've come to realize that my mom probably learned that from watching my grandparents. Because my grandmother definitely did not love my grandfather. Okay, maybe she loved him, but not the same way that he loved her. Like, I feel like she was more afraid that he was gonna leave. And he wanted her happy and whole and taken care of, and she just... It's not the kind of love that she had for him. She had that stifling, controlling, don't leave me.